The night air crackled with tension as flashing red and blue lights illuminated the abandoned warehouse district of Tampa. Officer Mike Anderson's heart pounded against his Kevlar vest, his hand steady on Duke's lead. The German shepherd's muscles tensed, ready to spring into action. Officer down. Officer down, the radio crackled. Suspect armed and dangerous. K9 unit, proceed with extreme caution. Through the maze of shipping containers, Duke's low growl was the only warning. In a split second, a shadow moved, a gun raised. But before the trigger could be pulled, Duke launched forward, a blur of black and tan fury. The takedown was precise, practiced, perfect. That was Duke's last mission before retirement. No one knew it would lead to uncovering a truth buried for 8 years, a truth that would shake the Tampa Police Department to its core and test the bonds between a man and his K9 partner beyond imagination. Born into a legacy of law enforcement, Mike Anderson never doubted his path in life. His grandfather, John Anderson, had patrolled the streets of Tampa during the turbulent 1960s, earning the Medal of Valor for saving a family from a burning building. His father, Robert Anderson, served 30 years in the force, rising to the rank of detective before retiring in 2010. The weight of their badges now rested on Mike's young shoulders. But Mike's journey wasn't the straight line everyone expected. Growing up in a modest home in South Tampa, he witnessed firsthand the toll police work took on his family. The missed birthdays, the sleepless nights, the silent dinners when his father worked particularly difficult cases. His mother, Grace, held the family together with quiet strength, never complaining about the constant worry that came with being a police officer's wife. In high school, Mike excelled at sports, particularly track and field. His coaches pushed him toward a college athletic scholarship, but his heart remained fixed on the police academy. The decision caused the first real argument he'd ever had with his father. "You're too smart for this life," son Robert had said, his voice heavy with the weight of experience. "You could be anything, a lawyer, a doctor. Why choose a path that'll break your mother's heart every time you walk out that door?" But Mike stood firm. He graduated top of his class at Jefferson High School in 2010, declining offers from several universities. Instead, he enrolled in the Tampa Police Academy, determined to prove himself worthy of the Anderson name without riding on his family's reputation. The academy tested him in ways he never expected. While his classmates struggled with physical demands, Mike found the emotional aspects most challenging. Learning to maintain professional distance while showing empathy, making split-second decisions that could change lives forever, these were lessons no amount of family dinner conversations could have prepared him for. During his second year at the academy, tragedy struck. His grandfather, John, suffered a severe stroke, leaving him partially paralyzed. In the hospital, between labored breaths, John shared stories about his early days on the force. One story particularly stuck with Mike about a K9 officer who saved John's life during a routine traffic stop gone wrong. "Dogs," John had whispered, his speech slurred but his eyes clear. "They're the purest partners you'll ever have on the force. No hidden agendas, no office politics. Just unconditional loyalty and trust." Those words would echo in Mike's mind years later when he first met Duke, though he couldn't have known it at the time. For now, he was focused on graduating, on making his grandfather proud before time ran out. John lived to see Mike graduate third in his class, managing a weak but proud salute from his wheelchair during the ceremony. Fresh out of the academy at 23, Mike started as a patrol officer in one of Tampa's tougher neighborhoods. His colleagues expected special treatment given his family name, but Mike worked twice as hard to prove himself. He took the graveyard shifts nobody wanted, responded first to the calls others hesitated to take, and never once mentioned his father's reputation to gain favor. His supervisors noticed. Within 18 months, he'd earned a reputation of his own, not as Robert's son or John's grandson, but as Mike Anderson, the officer who showed up first and left last, who treated every citizen with respect regardless of circumstances, who seemed to have an almost supernatural instinct for trouble before it erupted. But something was missing. Despite his growing success, Mike felt incomplete, as if waiting for something or someone to give his service real meaning. He'd watched the K9 units work, admiring the profound bond between handler and dog, remembering his grandfather's words. But the K9 program was highly competitive, and despite his family's legacy, Mike knew he'd have to earn his place like everyone else. He never imagined that fate had already set in motion events that would not only lead him to his K9 partner but would test every lesson his family had taught him about loyalty, justice, and the true meaning of partnership. On a rain-soaked November night in 2015, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. While patrolling the industrial district near Port Tampa Bay, Mike Anderson heard whimpers coming from behind Mario's Italian restaurant. The sound was barely audible over the pounding rain, but it stopped him in his tracks. Behind a dumpster, in a waterlogged cardboard box, lay a German Shepherd puppy, no more than 8 months old. The dog's coat was matted with blood, a deep gash across his neck suggesting a cruel attempt to silence him forever. But what struck Mike wasn't just the injury, it was the dog's eyes. Despite the pain and trauma, they held an intelligence and dignity that seemed almost human. "Central, this is Officer Anderson," Mike radioed, his voice tight with controlled anger. "I need animal control and emergency vet services at 1242 Harbor Street. Possible evidence of animal fighting ring activity." He removed his rain jacket, carefully wrapping it around the shivering puppy. The dog didn't resist, instead pressing closer to Mike's chest as if recognizing a savior. Dr. Emily Roberts of Tampa Emergency Veterinary Clinic worked through the night to save the puppy's life. In 15 years of practice, she told Mike, who refused to leave the waiting room, "I've never seen a young dog with such a will to live." The wound was precise. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. The puppy needed 3 blood transfusions and over 100 stitches. Police evidence technicians photographed distinctive marks on his coat and collar, suggesting links to an underground dogfighting ring that had been plaguing Tampa for months. But without witnesses or surveillance footage, the case seemed destined for the cold files. During the puppy's recovery, Mike visited daily. He named him Duke, after his grandfather's old K9 partner from the 60s. Duke responded to the name as if he'd been waiting for it his whole life. Their bond grew stronger with each visit, Duke's tail wagging the moment Mike's footsteps echoed in the clinic hallway. Dr. Roberts noticed something special about their connection. "This dog," she observed one evening, "he's not just recovering physically. He's healing emotionally because of you, Mike. It's rare to see this level of trust from an abuse victim, human or animal." Mike began the adoption paperwork, dreaming of training Duke himself, maybe even as a future K9 partner. But bureaucracy had other plans. The police department classified Duke as potential evidence in an ongoing investigation. Moreover, given his background and injuries, they decided he needed professional evaluation for potential service work. Despite Mike's protests and perfect record, his age and single status worked against him. Captain James Wilson, head of the K9 unit, delivered the news personally. "Anderson, I understand your attachment, but this isn't about you. This dog has special potential. He needs professional training, not a rookie cop's pet project." The day Duke left for the police training facility in Georgia was one of the hardest in Mike's career. The puppy who had fought so hard to live now stood proudly, his neck scar hidden beneath new growth of fur, wearing an official training collar. He licked Mike's hand one last time before following the trainer into the transport van. What no one knew then was that Duke's journey was far from over. The marks on his collar would eventually lead to a conspiracy that reached into the highest ranks of Tampa law enforcement. His scar would become not just a reminder of survival, but a symbol of courage that would inspire change in police departments across Florida. But for now, Duke was just another trainee and Mike just another patrol officer, each carrying the memory of those rainy nights in the clinic, when a broken puppy and a young cop forged a bond that would eventually shake the foundations of corruption and redefine the meaning of loyalty. Sarah Thompson wasn't your typical Tampa Tribune journalist. With auburn hair usually tied in a messy bun and a perpetually coffee-stained notebook, she had built her reputation by exposing corruption in local government. Her first encounter with Mike Anderson came during a routine press briefing about a drug bust, but it was his compassion towards a suspect's abandoned dog that caught her attention. "Most cops would have just called animal control," she told her editor later. "This one stayed 3 hours after his shift to find it a home." What Sarah didn't know then was that Mike's connection to abandoned dogs ran deeper than she could imagine, tied to a German Shepherd named Duke who still haunted his thoughts. Dr. Emily Roberts had been Tampa Emergency Veterinary Clinic's head surgeon for 15 years. A tall woman with prematurely gray hair and steady hands, she'd seen the worst of humanity's cruelty to animals. The night Mike brought in Duke changed something in her. The case awakened old memories of her father, a K9 officer killed in the line of duty when she was 12. She kept Duke's case file separate from others, reviewing it regularly, convinced there was more to the story than a simple abuse case. Captain James Wilson commanded respect in the Tampa Police Department. A 25-year veteran with a chest full of commendations, he ran the K9 unit with military precision. His silver hair and ramrod straight posture reflected his Marine Corps background, but beneath the polished exterior lay complex motivations. He'd been the one to deny Mike's adoption of Duke, citing regulations and protocols. Yet he'd also fast-tracked Duke's entry into the K9 training program, recognizing something special in the dog's resilience. Detective Lisa Martinez, a seasoned investigator in the department's Internal Affairs Division, played her cards close to the chest. Her investigation into the dog fighting ring had hit multiple dead ends, but she kept returning to Duke's case file. She noticed how evidence photos had disappeared, witness statements had been altered, and certain names had been redacted without proper authorization. Officer Tommy Sullivan, Mike's patrol partner, provided comic relief in the department with his thick Boston accent and endless supply of bad jokes. But his loyalty to Mike was unwavering, especially after Mike had backed him up during a domestic violence call gone wrong. Tommy was the first to notice the strange coincidences surrounding Duke's case, how evidence vanished whenever they got close to certain neighborhoods, how some suspects seemed untouchable. Karen Wilson, the captain's wife and a prominent Tampa socialite, appeared picture-perfect at police functions, yet her carefully maintained facade hid dark secrets. Her charity foundation, supposedly dedicated to animal welfare, had financial ties that would eventually expose a network of corruption reaching far beyond Tampa city limits. Sergeant David Chin, the department's technology expert, kept to himself in the basement office he'd transformed into a digital command center. His quiet dedication to data analysis would later prove crucial in connecting the dots between seemingly unrelated cases. His discovery of pattern irregularities in K9 unit deployments would set off a chain of events nobody could have predicted. These individuals, each carrying their own secrets and motivations, orbited around Mike and Duke's story like planets around a darkening sun. Their choices, both small and large, would weave together to create a tapestry of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption that would change the Tampa Police Department forever. Little did they know that their lives would become inextricably linked through a series of events that began with a wounded German shepherd in a rain-soaked alley. Each would play a crucial role in the drama that was about to unfold, their actions rippling through the department like waves in a pond, touching lives far beyond their immediate circle. The Tampa Police Department's K9 unit had long been the crown jewel of Florida law enforcement. Established in 1962, it had grown from 3 handlers and their dogs to a sophisticated unit of 25 teams, consistently ranking among the nation's top K9 programs. The unit's trophy case and headquarters displayed dozens of awards, photographs of heroic dogs, and memorial plaques for those who had fallen in the line of duty. But beneath the polished surface of commendations and newspaper clippings, the department wrestled with internal tensions. The old guard, led by veterans like Captain Wilson, clung to traditional methods and hierarchies. The younger officers, including Mike Anderson's generation, pushed for modernization, community engagement, and greater transparency. The department's history with the community was equally complex. In the predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods around Port Tampa Bay, residents remembered the heavy-handed police tactics of the 1980s. In the affluent areas of Davis Islands, private security firms had begun competing with police patrols, straining relationships with wealthy donors who traditionally supported the department. Budget cuts in 2014 had forced difficult choices. The K9 training facility, once the pride of the department, now operated with minimal staff. The veterinary care program, previously comprehensive, relied increasingly on private partnerships. Some whispered that these financial pressures had led to compromises in training standards and dog selection. The statistics told their own story. K9 unit deployments had increased by 40% over the past 5 years, while successful apprehension rates dropped. Internal affairs investigations into excessive force involving K9 units had doubled, though few resulted in disciplinary action. Officer Martinez had noted these trends in her reports, but her concerns seemed to vanish into administrative black holes. Politics played its part. Mayor Richard Hamilton's Safer Tampa initiative prioritized visible police presence in tourist areas, often at the expense of community policing programs. The police union fought back, arguing for better resources and training. Caught in the middle, officers like Mike Anderson struggled to maintain their integrity while navigating increasingly murky waters. The department's relationship with local media had deteriorated since the Tampa Tribune's expose on police overtime abuse in 2013. Sarah Thompson's arrival at the paper had only intensified scrutiny. Her series on civil asset forfeiture had won a regional journalism award and earned her a permanent spot on Captain Wilson's list of troublemakers. Within this pressure cooker atmosphere, the K9 unit maintained its mystique. Citizens loved seeing the dogs at community events, and children wrote letters to their favorite K9 officers. The unit's success stories finding lost elderly residents, catching dangerous criminals, discovering crucial evidence regularly made local headlines. But questions lingered about the unit's oversight. The breeding and training program, once transparent, had become oddly secretive. Dogs seemed to appear and disappear without clear documentation. Training records, previously public, were now classified as sensitive information. Even veteran officers found it difficult to track the movement of dogs through the system. The case that brought Duke into the department's orbit should have been routine, another rescued animal, another piece of evidence in the ongoing investigation into dogfighting. Instead, it became a thread that, when pulled, would begin to unravel years of carefully constructed facades. For Mike Anderson, navigating this complex landscape meant balancing his family's legacy, his own principles, and the harsh realities of modern policing. Every decision, from logging evidence to filing reports, carried potential consequences that reached far beyond his pay grade. The events that would change the Tampa Police Department forever began on November 15, 2015, during the worst storm of the year. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, turning the Port District streets into shallow canals and driving even the most hardened criminals indoors. Officer Mike Anderson shouldn't have been in that alley behind Mario's Italian restaurant. His shift had ended 20 minutes earlier, but something, instinct, fate, or perhaps his grandfather's oft-repeated advice about trusting his gut, made him take one last pass through the industrial district. The first lightning flash illuminated nothing unusual: dumpsters, recycling bins, the usual detritus of restaurant life. But the second flash caught a movement, barely perceptible, near a stack of wooden pallets. Mike's hand instinctively moved to his service weapon, then froze as the sound reached him, a whimper, almost lost in the drumming rain. "Tampa PD," he called out, following procedure even as his instincts told him this wasn't a typical situation. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, reflecting off puddles and wet cardboard before finding its target. The sight stopped him cold. A German Shepherd puppy lay partially hidden behind a dumpster, its dark fur matted with something that Mike immediately recognized wasn't just rainwater. The dog's neck bore a savage wound, precise in its cruelty, the kind that spoke of professional brutality rather than random violence. "Hey, buddy," Mike said softly, crouching down. The puppy's eyes met his, and in that moment Mike saw something that would haunt him for years to come: not fear, not pain, but a profound intelligence and dignity that transcended the cruelty it had endured. His radio crackled to life. "All units, be advised, severe weather warning in effect. Non-essential personnel are cleared to return to station." Mike ignored it, already dialing the emergency veterinary clinic. Dr. Emily Roberts answered on the second ring. "Tampa Emergency Vet. This is Officer Anderson. I've got a severely injured German Shepherd puppy, probable dogfighting victim. Blood loss, neck trauma, maybe 8 months old." "Bring him in immediately," Dr. Roberts replied, her voice shifting from professional to urgent. "I'll have the trauma team ready." The next few minutes tested every bit of Mike's training. The puppy didn't resist as Mike wrapped him in his patrol jacket, but every movement elicited small whimpers that cut straight to Mike's heart. Blood soaked through the jacket, warm against his chest as he ran for his patrol car. Lightning split the sky as Mike carefully placed the puppy in the passenger seat. In that brief, brilliant moment, he noticed something else: a small tattoo inside the dog's ear, partially obscured by blood but clearly professional work. Not a typical breeder's mark, but something else, something that would later prove crucial to unraveling a conspiracy that reached to the highest levels of Tampa law enforcement. The drive to the clinic seemed endless. Mike broke protocol, running red lights with sirens blaring through the deserted streets. The puppy never took his eyes off Mike's face, maintaining a connection that transcended their brief acquaintance. "Stay with me, buddy," Mike kept saying, one hand on the steering wheel, the other reaching over to offer comfort. "We're almost there. Just stay with me." They arrived at the clinic in record time. Dr. Roberts and her team were waiting at the emergency entrance, equipment ready. As they rushed the puppy into surgery, Mike stood in the rain-soaked parking lot, his uniform covered in blood, knowing that something fundamental had changed in his life. He didn't know then about the missing evidence files in the department's dog-fighting investigation. He couldn't have known about Captain Wilson's late-night meetings with people who didn't appear in any official records. He had no way of knowing that the puppy's distinctive wound pattern would match 5 other cases that had mysteriously disappeared from police records. All Mike Anderson knew, standing in that parking lot as thunder rolled overhead, was that he had found someone worth fighting for. And fight he would, though the cost would prove far higher than he could have imagined. The Tampa Emergency Veterinary Clinic hummed with urgent activity as Dr. Emily Roberts led her trauma team in their fight to save the German Shepherd puppy's life. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the operating room, where monitors beeped steadily, marking each precious heartbeat. BP's dropping called out Lisa, the senior veterinary technician. "He's lost too much blood." Dr. Roberts worked with practiced precision, her hands steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Start another unit of plasma. This wound, someone knew exactly what they were doing. They missed the carotid by millimeters." In the waiting room, Mike Anderson paced relentlessly, his boots leaving wet tracks on the linoleum floor. He'd called in the incident, but something made him withhold certain details: the tattoo in the dog's ear, the precise nature of the wound. 15 years as a cop's son had taught him when to play his cards close to the chest. Officer Tommy Sullivan arrived an hour into the surgery, carrying fresh coffee and a change of clothes for Mike. "You look like hell, partner," he said, handing over the coffee. "Dispatch said you found a hurt dog, but this looks more like a murder scene." He gestured at Mike's blood-stained uniform. "Something's not right about this," Tommy Mike replied, his voice low. "That wound wasn't random. Someone tried to silence that dog." The surgery stretched into its 3rd hour. Dr. Roberts emerged periodically, her surgical mask pulled down, to update Mike. The puppy had needed 3 blood transfusions. The wound required over 100 stitches. But what concerned her most was what she found during the examination. "There are older injuries," she explained, showing Mike the x-rays. "Healed fractures, evidence of systematic abuse. But here's the strange part: some of these injuries were treated professionally. Someone was patching this dog up between fights." Mike's police instincts kicked into high gear. Professional veterinary care meant money. Money meant organization. And organization meant this went beyond street-level dogfighting. Sarah Thompson from the Tampa Tribune arrived just before dawn, having heard about the rescue on the police scanner. She found Mike in the clinic's break room, reviewing his body camera footage from the scene. "Officer Anderson," she said, notebook already in hand. "Care to comment on whether this is connected to the organized dog-fighting ring your department's been investigating?" Mike's head snapped up. "The investigation was supposed to be confidential. How do you know about that?" Sarah's expression turned serious. "Because 3 other dogs with similar injuries have been found in the last month. All disappeared from evidence before they could be examined. All cases marked closed without explanation." Before Mike could respond, Dr. Roberts burst into the room. "He's awake," she announced, a tired smile breaking across her face. "And he's asking for you, Officer Anderson." In the recovery area, the puppy lay wrapped in warming blankets, tubes and monitors still attached, but his eyes alert. The moment Mike entered, the dog's tail thumped weakly against the blanket. "He's a fighter," Dr. Roberts said softly. "Most dogs with these injuries wouldn't have made it. He needs a name." Mike reached out, gently stroking the puppy's head. "Duke," he said without hesitation. "His name is Duke." The name felt right, carrying both dignity and strength. Duke responded immediately, pressing his head into Mike's hand despite his injuries. What none of them knew then was that this moment, this simple act of naming a rescued dog would set in motion a chain of events that would expose decades of corruption, tear apart the Tampa Police Department, and test the limits of loyalty and justice. For now, in that quiet early morning hour, it was just a man and a dog forging a bond that would come to mean everything to both of them. The first challenge came 3 days after Duke's rescue, when Captain James Wilson strode into the veterinary clinic, his polished badge catching the morning light. Mike had just finished his night shift and was spending his off-duty hours with Duke, as he had every day since the rescue. Officer Anderson Wilson's voice carried the weight of authority. A word in private. In Dr. Roberts' small office, Wilson didn't waste time on pleasantries. The dog is evidence in an ongoing investigation. He'll be transferred to the department's K9 facility once he's stable. Sir, with respect, Mike countered, I've already started the adoption paperwork. Duke needs a stable home environment to recover. Wilson's expression hardened. Duke? You named him? Anderson, you're too close to this. This isn't about a pet, it's about breaking open the largest dog fighting ring in Tampa's history. The argument that followed would be remembered by clinic staff for months. Mike presented his case methodically, his perfect service record, his family's history with the department, his ability to provide both care and protection for Duke. Wilson countered with regulations, protocols, and thinly veiled threats about career implications. Dr. Roberts tried to intervene on Mike's behalf. Medically speaking, separating them now could be traumatic for the dog's recovery, she argued, presenting Duke's charts. The bond they've formed is facilitating his healing. But Wilson remained unmoved. This isn't a Hallmark movie, Doctor. This is a criminal investigation. The dog stays in police custody. Sarah Thompson, who'd been following the case, discovered something troubling. 3 other rescued fighting dogs were transferred to the K9 facility in the past year, she told Mike over coffee later that day. All 3 disappeared from records within weeks. No adoption papers, no transfer documents, nothing. Mike spent that night reviewing every regulation in the department manual, looking for a loophole, a precedent, anything that would allow him to keep Duke. His apartment was already prepared: bed, bowls, toys bought with his own money. He'd even started researching canine trauma therapy. The next morning, Internal Affairs Detective Lisa Martinez paid an unexpected visit to the clinic. She took photographs, collected samples, and asked pointed questions about Duke's injuries. Her presence added another layer of tension to an already complex situation. Something isn't adding up, she confided to Mike in a whispered conversation by the coffee machine. The pattern of injuries, the professional medical care, the missing records, it's too organized for street-level criminals. Duke, meanwhile, continued to improve, seemingly unaware of the storm brewing around him. His wound was healing cleanly, and his personality emerged more each day: intelligent, loyal, and remarkably resilient. He still whimpered in his sleep sometimes, but would calm immediately at Mike's touch. The final blow came a week after Duke's rescue. Wilson arrived with official transfer papers and 2 K9 unit officers. Mike was ordered to take personal leave, effectively removing him from the investigation entirely. This isn't just about the dog anymore, is it, Sir? Mike asked quietly as Duke was led away, watching the German Shepherd look back at him repeatedly with confused eyes. Wilson's response was cryptic: some fights aren't worth the cost, Anderson. Remember that. As the transport van disappeared into Tampa's morning traffic, Dr. Roberts placed a hand on Mike's shoulder. This isn't over, she said firmly. Something's very wrong here, and Duke's case might be the key to exposing it all. Mike watched until the van turned the corner, his grandfather's words echoing in his mind. Sometimes the biggest acts of corruption happen right under our badges. He made a silent promise to Duke and to himself. This separation was temporary. Whatever secrets lay behind Wilson's actions, whatever corruption lurked in the department's shadows, he would uncover it all. The Tampa Police Department's K9 training facility sat on 20 acres of fenced land on the city's outskirts. Behind its chain-link fences and security cameras, Duke faced his new reality. Head trainer Marcus Reynolds, a former military dog handler with a reputation for strict discipline, had clear opinions about rescued dogs. Fighting dogs don't make police dogs, Reynolds declared during Duke's initial evaluation. Too much baggage, too unpredictable, yet Duke's response to basic commands made him pause. The German Shepherd displayed unusual focus, ignoring distractions and maintaining eye contact with handlers. Meanwhile, Mike Anderson used his forced leave productively. He discovered that the department's K9 procurement records showed disturbing patterns. Regular purchases from approved breeders had decreased, while acquisitions from external sources had tripled. Each case file was signed by Captain Wilson personally. Sarah Thompson's investigation revealed more connections. The vet bills she showed Mike, they're all paid through a shell company linked to Karen Wilson's charity foundation, the same foundation that handles donations for the K9 unit. At the facility, Duke surprised everyone. Despite Reynolds' skepticism, the dog excelled in every test. Scent detection, agility, obedience, Duke's scores matched or exceeded those of purpose-bred police dogs. But at night, kennel staff reported hearing him cry. Dr. Roberts made weekly visits to check Duke's healing wound. He's physically strong, she reported to Mike, but there's depression in his eyes. He searches for you every time the door opens. Officer Tommy Sullivan provided inside information from his cousin who worked facility maintenance. They're pushing him hard, Mike. Double sessions, minimal rest. Reynolds keeps saying he needs to prove himself worthy. The breakthrough came during a routine training exercise. A thunderstorm spooked one of the younger dogs, who bolted into a dangerous equipment area. Without hesitation, Duke broke formation, gently herded the frightened dog to safety, then returned to his position. Reynolds couldn't ignore such natural instinct and leadership. Detective Martinez quietly monitored the situation. Keep documenting everything, she advised Mike. Every irregular procedure, every unusual payment. We're building a picture here. The facility's veterinarian, Dr. James Morton, raised concerns about Duke's training schedule. This dog needs more recovery time, he wrote in his report. The next day, Morton was replaced by a vet from Karen Wilson's approved list. Mike filed formal requests to visit Duke, all denied by Captain Wilson. The dog is department property now, Wilson reminded him. Focus on your patrol duties, Anderson. That's an order. But Duke had other plans. During a fence line training exercise, he caught Mike's scent from the public road where Mike had parked to watch. The dog's behavior changed instantly, alert, excited, focused on his former rescuer. Reynolds noted this distraction in Duke's file as a potential problem. Sarah Thompson's latest article questioned the K9 unit's training methods. The next morning, she found her car tires slashed. The responding officer was Tommy Sullivan, who photographed everything and quietly added it to Mike's growing file of evidence. Dr. Roberts received anonymous threats warning her to stop asking questions about Duke's case. She responded by documenting every detail of his medical history and sending copies to trusted colleagues. Through it all, Duke continued to excel, his performance forcing even Reynolds to reconsider his prejudices. Never seen anything like it, he admitted to his assistant. This dog doesn't just follow commands, he thinks through problems. But the growing attention brought unwanted scrutiny. Wilson began making unexpected visits to the facility. Training logs were altered. Security footage from certain dates went missing. The web of secrets surrounding Duke's case grew more complex with each passing day. 4 months into Duke's training program, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. A major drug bust was planned in Tampa's warehouse district, requiring all available K9 units. Despite Reynolds' protests about Duke's incomplete training, Captain Wilson ordered every capable dog into service. Mike Anderson, recently restored to active duty, arrived at the pre-operation briefing to find the room buzzing with tension. 20 officers, 10 K9 units, and enough tactical gear to suggest this was more than a routine raid. As Wilson laid out the operation plans, Mike's heart stopped there. At the edge of the K9 group sat Duke. The German Shepherd had transformed. Gone was the wounded puppy. In his place stood a powerful, confident police dog. The scar on his neck, now barely visible beneath his fur, served as the only reminder of his past. When Duke caught Mike's scent, his ears perked up, but years of police training kept him disciplined at his temporary handler's side. Teams Alpha through Charlie will take the perimeter, Wilson announced. Dog teams will sweep in coordinated pairs. Anderson, you're with Martinez on surveillance. The assignment felt deliberate, keeping Mike far from Duke's operating zone. But 10 minutes into the operation, everything changed. The suspect had rigged the warehouse's sprinkler system with hallucinogenic drugs, disorienting both officers and dogs. Through the chaos of radio calls and confusion, Mike heard Duke's handler call for backup. Without waiting for authorization, Mike broke from his position. He found Duke and his handler cornered by two suspects, the handler struggling with the effects of the drugs. Duke stood his ground, protecting his incapacitated handler, but the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Duke, hire Mike," called out instinctively, using the German command for "come here." Despite months of separation, despite new training and new handlers, Duke's response was immediate. In perfect coordination with Mike, as if they'd worked together for years, they subdued both suspects without injury. The aftermath brought uncomfortable questions. How had Duke remembered commands he'd never been officially taught? Why did he work so seamlessly with Mike? Reynolds, reviewing the incident footage, couldn't deny the exceptional performance. Natural bond like that, Detective Martinez observed later. You can't train it, can't fake it either. Makes you wonder why they tried so hard to keep you two apart. Sarah Thompson's article about the raid focused on the miraculous reunion of officer and dog, though she carefully included quotes about Duke's exemplary training and the department's K9 program. The public response was overwhelming, hundreds of letters and emails supporting Mike and Duke's partnership. But Wilson wasn't finished. In a closed-door meeting with the police chief, he argued that the incident proved Duke was emotionally compromised and unsuitable for police work. The chief, however, had other concerns. "The public loves this story," Jamesy said, reviewing the press coverage. "Officer saves dog, dog saves officer, it's perfect PR. And after those budget cuts, we need all the good press we can get." Wilson's resistance only deepened Mike's suspicions. Why fight so hard against something that benefited the department? What was Wilson afraid would be discovered if Mike and Duke worked together? Dr. Roberts provided another piece of the puzzle. Duke's original medical records, which she'd kept copies of, showed surgical techniques that matched those used in high-end veterinary clinics, the same clinics that Karen Wilson's foundation funded. The raid had changed everything. Duke's performance couldn't be ignored, and the public spotlight made it harder to manipulate the situation behind the scenes. Mike found unexpected allies within the department, officers who'd witnessed similar irregularities but hadn't connected the dots. As Duke was led back to the training facility that evening, his eyes locked with Mike's one last time. Both knew something had shifted. The wall of separation was cracking, and through those cracks the truth was beginning to seep out. The week following the warehouse raid, the Tampa Police Department found itself in an unprecedented situation. Public pressure to unite Mike and Duke mounted daily, fueled by Sarah Thompson's articles and viral videos of their reunion. Chief Peterson faced a dilemma: maintain the status quo and risk public backlash, or challenge Captain Wilson's authority over the K9 unit. Mike used the momentum strategically. He submitted a formal request for K9 handler training, backed by letters of recommendation from veteran officers, including Detective Martinez. His file included Duke's outstanding performance records and documentation of their natural rapport. "The numbers don't lie," Martinez argued during the review board meeting. "Anderson and Duke's takedown rate in one operation exceeds the average monthly stats of 3 regular K9 teams combined." Wilson countered aggressively. "This is emotional manipulation," he declared. "Anderson has no K9 handling experience. Duke's training isn't complete. We're risking years of protocol for a feel-good story." But Reynolds, the head trainer, surprisingly spoke in their favor. "I've been training police dogs for 20 years, he testified. "What I saw in that warehouse wasn't luck. It was something you can't train, a natural connection that most handlers spend years trying to develop." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Tommy Sullivan discovered that Karen Wilson's charity foundation had been pressuring the city council to privatize the K9 training program, the same foundation that had mysterious connections to veterinary clinics treating fighting dogs. Dr. Roberts presented her medical analysis. Duke's performance anxiety disappeared completely when working with Officer Anderson. Their separation was causing documented psychological stress that could have compromised Duke's service capabilities. Chief Peterson made his decision. Mike would enter the fast-track K9 handler program, with Duke assigned as his partner pending successful completion. Wilson's objections were overruled, though his tight-lipped response suggested the battle wasn't over. The training period tested both man and dog. Mike threw himself into learning everything about K9 handling scent work, tactical commands, behavioral psychology, Duke responded with extraordinary focus, as if making up for lost time. Their evening training sessions often drew small crowds of fellow officers amazed by their synchronicity. "It's like they're reading each other's minds," one rookie commented, watching Mike and Duke navigate the obstacle course blindfolded, relying purely on vocal commands and trust. Sarah Thompson continued her investigation, uncovering more connections between the Wilson Foundation and suspected dog fighting operations. Each revelation added pressure on Captain Wilson, who became increasingly isolated within the department. Detective Martinez noticed suspicious activities around the K9 facility. Files disappeared, security cameras malfunctioned during specific time periods, and certain areas were suddenly declared restricted without explanation. Mike and Duke's first official assignment approached a critical narcotics operation that would certify them as an active K9 team. The night before, Mike received an anonymous note: "Some people will do anything to prevent tomorrow's certification. Watch your back. Watch Duke's too." Dr. Roberts insisted on a final medical check of Duke. During the examination, she discovered something disturbing: traces of a substance in his blood that could have affected his performance. Someone had tried to sabotage their certification. The evidence was carefully documented and added to Martinez's growing file. The attempt failed. Duke's system had already processed most of the substance, but it proved how desperate certain forces were to keep them apart. The certification day arrived with tension hanging thick in the air. Wilson watched from the observation area as Mike and Duke began their evaluation. What followed would become legend in the department: a perfect score across all categories, setting a new department record. As Mike and Duke stood together at the end of the course, their success marked more than just a personal victory. It represented a crack in the wall of corruption that had protected certain interests for years. The question wasn't if that wall would fall, but when and who would go down with it. The morning after their certification, Mike and Duke caught their first major case. A series of drug shipments had been moving through Tampa's port, hidden inside supposed animal supply deliveries. Captain Wilson had no choice but to assign them. They were the closest K9 unit to the port district. "Stick to the protocol," Wilson warned, his jaw tight. "One mistake and you're both back on regular patrol." The port's maze of containers stretched before them like a metal forest. Duke worked methodically, his nose skimming the ground, while Mike watched his partner's every signal. Years of abuse had given Duke a unique advantage: he could distinguish subtle changes in scent that other dogs might miss. Container 247B shows clear on manifest. Detective Martinez radioed from her surveillance position. "But it's been logged in 3 different locations in the past hour." Duke's behavior changed suddenly near a stack of containers marked for animal supplies. His tail straightened, body tense, signals Mike had learned meant more than just drugs. Inside the container, they found not only narcotics, but evidence of something worse: temporary kennels, fighting equipment, and medical supplies matching those used on Duke years ago. "Call for backup," Mike ordered, but Duke was already on alert, sensing movement nearby. 3 suspects fled from behind nearby containers. The pursuit that followed demonstrated why Mike and Duke's partnership was special. Working in perfect synchronization, they herded the suspects toward waiting backup units. Duke never needed verbal commands; a slight gesture from Mike was enough. Their timing was flawless, their trust absolute. Sarah Thompson, arriving at the scene after the arrests, recognized one of the suspects, a former employee of Karen Wilson's foundation. The connection was too clear to ignore. Dr. Roberts examined the medical supplies found in the container. "These are high-grade veterinary tools," she confirmed. "The same brand used in the clinics funded by the Wilson Foundation." The evidence processing revealed more. Detective Martinez found financial records linking the shipments to offshore accounts. "The money trail leads back to Tampa," she told Mike privately. "Someone high up is protecting this operation." Captain Wilson arrived at the scene, his face unreadable. "Good work," he said stiffly, but his eyes followed Duke with an intensity that made Mike uneasy. The success brought unexpected attention. News crews captured Duke's proud stance beside Mike as they cataloged the evidence. The image went viral: the rescued fighting dog, now a hero police K9, taking down the very type of operation that once victimized him. But during the evidence inventory, Mike noticed something odd. Certain items disappeared between the initial count and final logging. When he raised concerns, he was told to focus on his next assignment. Tommy Sullivan, working the evidence room, slipped Mike a note some of the missing stuff matches cold cases from 3 years ago, cases that went nowhere because evidence vanished. Duke's behavior during subsequent port searches changed too. He began indicating specific patterns, leading them to more than just drug caches. Each discovery added another piece to a puzzle that stretched back years. The local press celebrated their success, but Sarah Thompson's articles hinted at deeper implications. Sources suggest recent K9 unit discoveries may connect to larger criminal enterprises operating within Tampa's elite circle, she wrote. Dr. Roberts found Duke's old X-rays during a routine checkup. Comparing them with medical equipment seized at the port revealed disturbing similarities. The tools that hurt him, she said quietly, came from the same source he's now helping to shut down. The case earned Mike and Duke official commendations, but their success carried a price. Unmarked cars began following Mike home. Duke's food had to be carefully checked after a suspicious package appeared in their equipment locker. Yet each threat only strengthened their resolve. The port bust wasn't just their first major success, it was the first crack in a facade that had protected Tampa's darkest secrets for years. The threats began subtly: a flat tire on Mike's patrol car, training equipment mysteriously malfunctioning, anonymous calls to his home in the middle of the night. But when Duke's special protective vest disappeared just before a high-risk operation, Mike knew they'd struck a nerve in Tampa's criminal underbelly. "They're trying to scare you off," Detective Martinez warned during a private meeting in her car, away from department cameras. The port bust exposed something bigger than drug trafficking. Someone's worried about what else you might find. Sarah Thompson's investigation revealed disturbing patterns. K9 units that got too close to certain cases were mysteriously reassigned. Handlers who asked questions found themselves facing internal affairs investigations. Some dogs simply vanished from service records. Captain Wilson's behavior became increasingly erratic. He demanded daily reports of Duke's activities, installed additional cameras at the K9 facility, and reassigned officers who showed too much support for Mike and Duke's partnership. Dr. Roberts discovered her clinic's security system had been tampered with. Duke's medical records, which contained crucial evidence about his fighting ring injuries, were specifically targeted. "They're trying to erase his past," she told Mike. The question is why. Tommy Sullivan, working late at the evidence room, noticed strange discrepancies. "Files about old dog fighting cases are being altered," he whispered to Mike during a coffee break. "Someone's systematically changing dates, locations, names." Duke's heightened senses proved invaluable during this period. He could detect surveillance teams before they got close, giving Mike crucial warnings. Their bond had grown so strong that a slight change in Duke's ear position or tail movement told Mike everything he needed to know. Karen Wilson's charity foundation announced a major initiative to modernize the department's K9 program. The proposal included privatizing training and medical care, effectively putting all police dogs under the foundation's control. "Follow the money," Martinez advised, passing Mike a thumb drive. "Every time a fighting ring gets busted, the foundation's donations spike. But the dogs? They disappear." The pressure intensified after Mike and Duke intercepted another shipment at the port. This time they found detailed veterinary records matching the surgical techniques used on fighting dogs, including Duke's old wounds. Sarah Thompson's car was broken into the night before publishing her expose on the foundation's finances. The only things taken were her research notes and laptop. The responding officers found professional-grade surveillance equipment hidden nearby. Dr. Roberts received an offer she couldn't refuse: a prestigious position at a private veterinary hospital, contingent on her forgetting certain details about Duke's case. Her refusal was met with thinly veiled threats about her medical license. Mike started documenting everything. He kept one set of records at the station, another with his father, and a third with a trusted lawyer. "If anything happens to me or Duke," he told Martinez, "everything goes public." The turning point came during a routine patrol. Duke's behavior suddenly changed the same alert he'd given at the port. Following his lead, they discovered a hidden facility behind a seemingly abandoned warehouse. Before they could investigate further, Captain Wilson personally ordered them to stand down. That night, Mike received a photograph in his mailbox: Duke as a puppy, before his rescue, in what appeared to be a high-end training facility. The back of the photo bore a simple message: some secrets are worth killing for. But the threats had an unintended effect. Each attempt to intimidate them only strengthened Mike and Duke's resolve. Other officers, seeing their courage, began coming forward with their own stories of irregularities and covered-up investigations. Their scared Martinez observed, reviewing the mounting evidence. "You and Duke aren't just solving cases, you're threatening a system that's been in place for years." 4 months into Duke's training program, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. A major drug bust was planned in Tampa's warehouse district, requiring all available K9 units. Despite Reynolds' protests about Duke's incomplete training, Captain Wilson ordered every capable dog into service. Mike Anderson, recently restored to active duty, arrived at the pre-operation briefing to find the room buzzing with tension. 20 officers, 10 K9 units, and enough tactical gear to suggest this was more than a routine raid. As Wilson laid out the operation plans, Mike's heart stopped. There at the edge of the K9 group sat Duke. The German Shepherd had transformed. Gone was the wounded puppy. In his place stood a powerful, confident police dog. The scar on his neck, now barely visible beneath his fur, served as the only reminder of his past. When Duke caught Mike's scent, his ears perked up, but years of police training kept him disciplined at his temporary handler's side. Teams Alpha through Charlie will take the perimeter, Wilson announced. Dog teams will sweep in coordinated pairs. "Anderson, you're with Martinez on surveillance." The assignment felt deliberate, keeping Mike far from Duke's operating zone. But 10 minutes into the operation, everything changed. The suspect had rigged the warehouse's sprinkler system with hallucinogenic drugs, disorienting both officers and dogs. Through the chaos of radio calls and confusion, Mike heard Duke's handler call for backup. Without waiting for authorization, Mike broke from his position. He found Duke and his handler cornered by 2 suspects, the handler struggling with the effects of the drugs. Duke stood his ground, protecting his incapacitated handler, but the situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Duke," Higher Mike called out instinctively, using the German command for "come here." Despite months of separation, despite new training and new handlers, Duke's response was immediate. In perfect coordination with Mike, as if they'd worked together for years, they subdued both suspects without injury. The aftermath brought uncomfortable questions. How had Duke remembered commands he'd never been officially taught? Why did he work so seamlessly with Mike? Reynolds, reviewing the incident footage, couldn't deny the exceptional performance. "Natural bond like that," Detective Martinez observed later. "You can't train it. Can't fake it either. Makes you wonder why they tried so hard to keep you two apart." Sarah Thompson's article about the raid focused on the miraculous reunion of officer and dog, though she carefully included quotes about Duke's exemplary training in the department's K9 program. The public response was overwhelming, hundreds of letters and emails supporting Mike and Duke's partnership. But Wilson wasn't finished. In a closed-door meeting with the police chief, he argued that the incident proved Duke was emotionally compromised and unsuitable for police work. The chief, however, had other concerns. "The public loves this story, James," he said, reviewing the press coverage. "Officer saves dog, dog saves officer. It's perfect PR. And after those budget cuts, we need all the good press we can get." Wilson's resistance only deepened Mike's suspicions. Why fight so hard against something that benefited the department? What was Wilson afraid would be discovered if Mike and Duke worked together? Dr. Roberts provided another piece of the puzzle. Duke's original medical records, which she'd kept copies of, showed surgical techniques that matched those used in high-end veterinary clinics, the same clinics that Karen Wilson's foundation funded. The raid had changed everything. Duke's performance couldn't be ignored, and the public spotlight made it harder to manipulate the situation behind the scenes. Mike found unexpected allies within the department, officers who'd witnessed similar irregularities but hadn't connected the dots. As Duke was led back to the training facility that evening, his eyes locked with Mike's one last time. Both knew something had shifted. The wall of separation was cracking, and through those cracks, the truth was beginning to seep out. The week following the warehouse raid, the Tampa Police Department found itself in an unprecedented situation. Public pressure to unite Mike and Duke mounted daily, fueled by Sarah Thompson's articles and viral videos of their reunion. Chief Peterson faced a dilemma: maintain the status quo and risk public backlash, or challenge Captain Wilson's authority over the K9 unit. Mike used the momentum strategically. He submitted a formal request for K9 handler training, backed by letters of recommendation from veteran officers, including Detective Martinez. His file included Duke's outstanding performance records and documentation of their natural rapport. The numbers don't lie, Martinez argued during the review board meeting. Anderson and Duke's takedown rate in one operation exceeds the average monthly stats of 3 regular K9 teams combined. Wilson countered aggressively. "This is emotional manipulation," he declared. "Anderson has no K9 handling experience. Duke's training isn't complete. We're risking years of protocol for a feel-good story." But Reynolds, the head trainer, surprisingly spoke in their favor. "I've been training police dogs for 20 years, he testified. "What I saw in that warehouse wasn't luck. It was something you can't train, a natural connection that most handlers spend years trying to develop." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Tommy Sullivan discovered that Karen Wilson's charity foundation had been pressuring the city council to privatize the K9 training program. The same foundation that had mysterious connections to veterinary clinics treating fighting dogs. Dr. Roberts presented her medical analysis. Duke's performance anxiety disappeared completely when working with Officer Anderson. Their separation was causing documented psychological stress that could have compromised Duke's service capabilities. Chief Peterson made his decision. Mike would enter the fast-track K9 handler program with Duke assigned as his partner pending successful completion. Wilson's objections were overruled, though his tight-lipped response suggested the battle wasn't over. The training period tested both man and dog. Mike threw himself into learning everything about K9 handling, scent work, tactical commands, behavioral psychology. Duke responded with extraordinary focus, as if making up for lost time. Their evening training sessions often drew small crowds of fellow officers, amazed by their synchronicity. "It's like they're reading each other's minds," one rookie commented, watching Mike and Duke navigate the obstacle course blindfolded, relying purely on vocal commands and trust. Sarah Thompson continued her investigation, uncovering more connections between the Wilson Foundation and suspected dog fighting operations. Each revelation added pressure on Captain Wilson, who became increasingly isolated within the department. Detective Martinez noticed suspicious activities around the K9 facility. Files disappeared, security cameras malfunctioned during specific time periods, and certain areas were suddenly declared restricted without explanation. Mike and Duke's first official assignment approached a critical narcotics operation that would certify them as an active K9 team. The night before, Mike received an anonymous note: "Some people will do anything to prevent tomorrow's certification. Watch your back. Watch Duke's too." Dr. Roberts insisted on a final medical check of Duke. During the examination, she discovered something disturbing: traces of a substance in his blood that could have affected his performance. Someone had tried to sabotage their certification. The evidence was carefully documented and added to Martinez's growing file. The attempt failed. Duke's system had already processed most of the substance, but it proved how desperate certain forces were to keep them apart. The certification day arrived with tension hanging thick in the air. Wilson watched from the observation area as Mike and Duke began their evaluation. What followed would become legend in the department: a perfect score across all categories, setting a new department record. As Mike and Duke stood together at the end of the course, their success marked more than just a personal victory. It represented a crack in the wall of corruption that had protected certain interests for years. The question wasn't if that wall would fall, but when and who would go down with it. The morning after their certification, Mike and Duke caught their first major case. A series of drug shipments had been moving through Tampa's port, hidden inside supposed animal supply deliveries. Captain Wilson had no choice but to assign them. They were the closest K9 unit to the port district. "Stick to the protocol," Wilson warned, his jaw tight. "One mistake and you're both back on regular patrol." The port's maze of containers stretched before them like a metal forest. Duke worked methodically, his nose skimming the ground, while Mike watched his partner's every signal. Years of abuse had given Duke a unique advantage: he could distinguish subtle changes in scent that other dogs might miss. Container 247B shows clear on manifest. Detective Martinez radioed from her surveillance position, but it's been logged in 3 different locations in the past hour. Duke's behavior changed suddenly near a stack of containers marked for animal supplies. His tail straightened, body tense signals Mike had learned meant more than just drugs. Inside the container, they found not only narcotics but evidence of something worse: temporary kennels, fighting equipment, and medical supplies matching those used on Duke years ago. "Call for backup," Mike ordered, but Duke was already on alert, sensing movement nearby. 3 suspects fled from behind nearby containers. The pursuit that followed demonstrated why Mike and Duke's partnership was special. Working in perfect synchronization, they herded the suspects toward waiting backup units. Duke never needed verbal commands. A slight gesture from Mike was enough. Their timing was flawless, their trust absolute. Sarah Thompson, arriving at the scene after the arrests, recognized one of the suspects, a former employee of Karen Wilson's foundation. The connection was too clear to ignore. Dr. Roberts examined the medical supplies found in the container. "These are high-grade veterinary tools," she confirmed, "the same brand used in the clinics funded by the Wilson Foundation." The evidence processing revealed more. Detective Martinez found financial records linking the shipments to offshore accounts. "The money trail leads back to Tampa," she told Mike privately. "Someone high up is protecting this operation." Captain Wilson arrived at the scene, his face unreadable. "Good work," he said stiffly, but his eyes followed Duke with an intensity that made Mike uneasy. The success brought unexpected attention. News crews captured Duke's proud stance beside Mike as they cataloged the evidence. The image went viral: the rescued fighting dog, now a hero police K9, taking down the very type of operation that once victimized him. But during the evidence inventory, Mike noticed something odd. Certain items disappeared between the initial count and final logging. When he raised concerns, he was told to focus on his next assignment. Tommy Sullivan, working the evidence room, slipped Mike a note. "Some of the missing stuff matches cold cases from 3 years ago. Cases that went nowhere because evidence vanished." Duke's behavior during subsequent port searches changed too. He began indicating specific patterns, leading them to more than just drug caches. Each discovery added another piece to a puzzle that stretched back years. The local press celebrated their success, but Sarah Thompson's articles hinted at deeper implications. Sources suggest recent K9 unit discoveries may connect to larger criminal enterprises operating within Tampa's elite circles, she wrote. Dr. Roberts found Duke's old X-rays during a routine checkup. Comparing them with medical equipment seized at the port revealed disturbing similarities. "The tools that hurt him," she said quietly, "came from the same source he's now helping to shut down." The case earned Mike and Duke official commendations, but their success carried a price. Unmarked cars began following Mike home. Duke's food had to be carefully checked after a suspicious package appeared in their equipment locker. Yet each threat only strengthened their resolve. The port bust wasn't just their first major success, it was the first crack in a facade that had protected Tampa's darkest secrets for years. The threats began subtly. A flat tire on Mike's patrol car. Training equipment mysteriously malfunctioning. Anonymous calls to his home in the middle of the night. But when Duke's special protective vest disappeared just before a high-risk operation, Mike knew they'd struck a nerve in Tampa's criminal underbelly. "They're trying to scare you off," Detective Martinez warned during a private meeting in her car, away from department cameras. "The port bust exposed something bigger than drug trafficking. Someone's worried about what else you might find." Sarah Thompson's investigation revealed disturbing patterns. K9 units that got too close to certain cases were mysteriously reassigned. Handlers who asked questions found themselves facing internal affairs investigations. Some dogs simply vanished from service records. Captain Wilson's behavior became increasingly erratic. He demanded daily reports of Duke's activities, installed additional cameras at the K9 facility, and reassigned officers who showed too much support for Mike and Duke's partnership. Dr. Roberts discovered her clinic's security system had been tampered with. Duke's medical records, which contained crucial evidence about his fighting ring injuries, were specifically targeted. "They're trying to erase his past," she told Mike. "The question is why?" Tommy Sullivan, working late at the evidence room, noticed strange discrepancies. "Files about old dog fighting cases are being altered," he whispered to Mike during a coffee break. "Someone's systematically changing dates, locations, names." Duke's heightened senses proved invaluable during this period. He could detect surveillance teams before they got close, giving Mike crucial warnings. Their bond had grown so strong that a slight change in Duke's ear position or tail movement told Mike everything he needed to know. Karen Wilson's charity foundation announced a major initiative to modernize the department's K9 program. The proposal included privatizing training in medical care, effectively putting all police dogs under the foundation's control. Follow the money Martinez advised, passing Mike a thumb drive. Every time a fighting ring gets busted, the foundation's donations spike. But the dogs, they disappear? The pressure intensified after Mike and Duke intercepted another shipment at the port. This time they found detailed veterinary records matching the surgical techniques used on fighting dogs, including Duke's old wounds. Sarah Thompson's car was broken into the night before publishing her expose on the foundation's finances. The only things taken were her research notes and laptop. The responding officers found professional-grade surveillance equipment hidden nearby. Dr. Roberts received an offer she couldn't refuse: a prestigious position at a private veterinary hospital, contingent on her forgetting certain details about Duke's case. Her refusal was met with thinly veiled threats about her medical license. Mike started documenting everything. He kept one set of records at the station, another with his father, and a third with a trusted lawyer. If anything happens to me or Duke, he told Martinez, everything goes public. The turning point came during a routine patrol. Duke's behavior suddenly changed the same alert he'd given at the port. Following his lead, they discovered a hidden facility behind a seemingly abandoned warehouse. Before they could investigate further, Captain Wilson personally ordered them to stand down. That night, Mike received a photograph in his mailbox of Duke as a puppy before his rescue in what appeared to be a high-end training facility. The back of the photo bore a simple message: some secrets are worth killing for. But the threats had an unintended effect. Each attempt to intimidate them only strengthened Mike and Duke's resolve. Other officers, seeing their courage, began coming forward with their own stories of irregularities and covered-up investigations. They're scared, Martinez observed, reviewing the mounting evidence. You and Duke aren't just solving cases, you're threatening a system that's been in place for years. In the 6 months following the port discoveries, Mike and Duke's reputation grew into legend within the Tampa Police Department. Their case clearance rate soared to 92%, unprecedented in K9 unit history. But with each success, the web of conspiracy around them tightened. Their breakthrough case came on a muggy Thursday evening. Duke's behavior during a routine patrol near the city's affluent Harbor Island district triggered Mike's instincts. The German Shepherd exhibited a specific head tilt he only showed when detecting the unique chemical compounds used in professional fighting rings. Something's off about that storage facility, Mike reported to Detective Martinez, who had become their unofficial backup. The building belonged to a subsidiary of Karen Wilson's foundation, officially listed as a pet supply warehouse. The subsequent raid revealed a sophisticated operation. Hidden behind legitimate business facades, they discovered state-of-the-art training equipment, surgical supplies, and most damning of all, financial records linking several high-profile Tampa residents to illegal dog-fighting events. This isn't street-level crime, Sarah Thompson noted, reviewing the evidence. These are country club memberships, political donations, charity ball invitations. They've been hiding in plain sight. Duke's reactions during the search proved crucial. He ignored obvious drug stashes, instead leading investigators to a hidden room containing veterinary records. Dr. Roberts confirmed what they had suspected: the medical protocols matched those used on Duke years ago. These are detailed breeding records, she explained, examining the files. They're creating specialized fighting dogs using legitimate K9 bloodlines as cover. That's why Duke is so special. He was part of their program before he escaped. Captain Wilson's attempts to shut down the investigation met unexpected resistance. Other officers, inspired by Mike and Duke's courage, began speaking up. Evidence from old cases resurfaced. Witnesses previously too frightened to talk came forward. Tommy Sullivan discovered surveillance logs showing systematic monitoring of certain K9 units. They've been watching specific dogs, he told Mike. Ones with traits they wanted for their breeding program. The partnership between Mike and Duke reached new levels of synchronization. During a high-stakes pursuit, Duke anticipated a suspect's movements so perfectly that other officers swore they must have rehearsed it. The truth was simpler: complete trust between handler and dog. Their success attracted national attention. A major police K9 training conference invited them to demonstrate their techniques. Captain Wilson couldn't prevent their attendance without raising suspicions, but his warning was clear: remember who you represent. At the conference, other handlers noticed something extraordinary about Duke. Beyond his impressive skills, he showed an unusual ability to identify dogs with similar backgrounds. 3 times he alerted to K9s that were later discovered to have been rescued under suspicious circumstances. Dr. Roberts' analysis of Duke's behavior provided crucial insights. He's not just remembering his training, she explained. He's actively helping us identify other victims of this program. He's turning their own methods against them. The evidence they gathered painted a disturbing picture. The fighting ring wasn't just about gambling, it was a sophisticated breeding operation using police K9 programs as unwitting cover. Dogs with desired traits would mysteriously fail training, disappearing into the underground network. Sarah Thompson's articles began connecting the dots. Political donations, zoning changes, convenient reassignments of investigating officers, all pointing to a network of protection extending into Tampa's highest circles. Mike documented everything meticulously, building a case that couldn't be easily buried. Duke's presence during evidence collection proved invaluable. His reactions helped identify key items that might otherwise have been overlooked. But their success came at a price. Each revelation brought them closer to the truth about Duke's origins, a truth that powerful people had killed to protect. The question wasn't if they would strike back, but when, how hard. As their investigation deepened, Mike and Duke's core support network became crucial. Dr. Emily Roberts transformed her veterinary clinic into an unofficial headquarters for their growing team. Late-night strategy sessions became regular occurrences, with case files spread across examination tables and Duke keeping watchful guard at the door. Sarah Thompson's role evolved from journalist to active participant. Her investigative skills complemented Mike's police work, while her media connections provided crucial protection. The more public this becomes, she explained, the harder it is for them to shut us down. The long hours working together led to an unexpected development, a growing personal connection between her and Mike that neither had anticipated. Detective Martinez proved invaluable, using her internal affairs position to monitor department politics. Wilson's making moves, she warned during one midnight meeting. He's trying to restructure the K9 unit, put it under private contract. We need to move faster. Tommy Sullivan's network of courthouse clerks and evidence room staff became their early warning system. Every document request, every unusual file access was noted and reported. His cousin in maintenance kept track of late-night visitors to the K9 facility, photographing license plates and logging unusual activities. Dr. Roberts' relationship with Duke deepened beyond that of veterinarian and patient. She noticed how he positioned himself between her and the door when working late, the same protective instinct he showed with Mike. He's not just solving cases, she observed. He's building his own pack. The breakthrough in team dynamics came during a crisis. When Dr. Roberts' clinic received threatening letters, the entire group mobilized without hesitation. Mike and Duke swept the building for surveillance devices. Sarah investigated the paper trail, and Martinez ran background checks on suspicious clients. Officer Jenny Chen from Cybercrimes joined their circle after discovering irregularities in the K9 unit's digital records. Someone's been altering training logs going back 5 years, she revealed. But they left traces. Every delete, every change at all leads back to the same IP addresses. Mike's father, retired Detective Robert Anderson, became their strategic advisor. His decades of experience helped them navigate department politics while avoiding obvious traps. They're watching you through official channels, he warned, so we create unofficial ones. Duke's role in cementing these relationships proved remarkable. He seemed to understand the importance of each team member, adjusting his behavior accordingly. With Sarah, he was gentle and encouraging, often resting his head on her lap during long research sessions. With Martinez, he maintained professional alertness, matching her no-nonsense approach. The team's diversity became its strength. Each member brought unique skills and perspectives. Jenny's tech expertise, Tommy's street-level intelligence, Sarah's investigative instincts, Martinez's strategic thinking, all coordinated through Mike and Duke's fieldwork. Dr. Roberts expanded her role, analyzing patterns in veterinary records across multiple clinics. They're using legitimate practices to hide their operation, she discovered. Every time a fighting dog needs treatment, it's logged as a routine police K9 visit. The personal cost of their mission became evident in small moments. Mike noticed how Sarah's hands shook slightly when reviewing particularly disturbing evidence. Dr. Roberts installed extra security cameras at her home. Martinez started varying her routes to work. Yet these challenges only strengthened their bonds. Weekly team dinners became a tradition, with Duke always present, his watchful eyes scanning for threats even in moments of relaxation. These gatherings served as both strategy sessions and emotional support groups. The team's growing closeness didn't go unnoticed. Captain Wilson's surveillance increased, forcing them to develop elaborate methods of communication. Meeting locations rotated randomly. Burner phones became standard equipment. Every team member learned basic counter-surveillance techniques. Through it all, Duke remained the heart of their operation. His presence during meetings had a calming effect, his alertness a constant reminder of why they were fighting. As Sarah noted in her private journal, in trying to save Duke, we found something none of us knew we needed: a family forged in the fight for justice. The investigation shifted into high gear when Jenny Chen uncovered a pattern in the K9 unit's digital records. Every 3 months, specific dogs would be marked as failed training and removed from the program. The dates coincided with large donations to Karen Wilson's foundation from anonymous overseas accounts. "Look at these training evaluations," Martinez pointed out during a late-night session at Dr. Roberts' clinic. All the failed dogs shared identical characteristics: high drive, strong bite work, exceptional aggression control. These weren't failures, they were selections. Sarah Thompson's research revealed a disturbing trend. Every dog marked for removal had specific genetic markers, she explained, spreading photos across the examination table. They were culling the program, selecting dogs with traits valuable to fighting operations. Duke's behavior provided crucial confirmation. During routine patrols, he started showing unusual interest in certain high-end properties. Cross-referencing these locations with Jenny's data revealed connections to Foundation board members. These weren't random hits. Duke was identifying locations from his past. But Dr. Roberts analyzed medical records from multiple clinics. The surgical techniques used on these dogs are identical, she noted, comparing files. Same procedures, same unusual suture patterns. Someone's training underground vets. Tommy Sullivan's courthouse contacts proved invaluable. "Judge Harrison's been handling all the K9 units' warrant requests," he reported. "Every time we get close to certain addresses, our warrants get delayed or denied." The team established a secure operations center in Dr. Roberts' clinic basement. Maps covered the walls, red strings connecting locations, dates, and names. Duke would often sit before the display, his attention drawn to specific photographs, offering silent confirmation of their theories. Mike and Sarah spent countless hours interviewing former K9 handlers who'd been mysteriously reassigned. A pattern emerged: those who questioned the failed dogs' disappearances found themselves facing internal investigations or sudden transfers. Officer Chen discovered encrypted emails between Captain Wilson and several private security firms. "They're not just breeding fighting dogs," she revealed. "They're selling specialized training techniques to overseas buyers." The breakthrough came when Duke led them to an abandoned training facility during a routine patrol. Hidden behind overgrown landscaping, they found equipment matching that used in professional K9 programs, modified for fighting purposes. "This is military-grade stuff," Martinez observed, photographing the facility. "Someone with serious connections is backing this operation." Dr. Roberts found medical waste matching the distinctive surgical supplies used on Duke years ago. "These aren't street criminals," she concluded. "This is a sophisticated operation with professional veterinary support." Sarah's investigation into the Foundation's finances revealed shell companies linking back to prominent Tampa families. "They're laundering money through legitimate K9 training programs," she explained. "The fighting ring is just one part of a larger operation." The team worked methodically, building their case piece by piece. Jenny monitored digital communications, Tommy gathered street-level intelligence, Martinez tracked internal department movements, while Mike and Duke continued their apparently routine patrols, gathering crucial evidence. Duke's role proved invaluable. His reactions to certain locations, vehicles, and individuals helped the team prioritize their investigation. His training in evidence detection, combined with his unique personal experience, made him an unparalleled asset. Captain Wilson's increasing scrutiny forced them to adapt. They developed a system of dead drops for sharing information. Dr. Roberts' clinic became their secure meeting point, with Duke's presence ensuring no surveillance went undetected. The investigation took an unexpected turn when they discovered links to other police departments across Florida. The pattern of failed K9's and suspicious training programs extended beyond Tampa, suggesting a network far larger than they'd initially suspected. The first direct confrontation came without warning. On a quiet Sunday morning, Mike and Duke arrived at Dr. Roberts' clinic to find the front door slightly ajar. Inside, the office had been professionally ransacked, filing cabinets emptied, computers missing, but nothing else disturbed. Duke's agitation confirmed Mike's worst fears. This was no random break-in. "They took everything," Dr. Roberts said, her voice shaking as she surveyed the damage. "All our case files, all the evidence we've collected," but her expression changed to a slight smile as she opened a hidden panel beneath her desk. "Except for what we stored here." The team gathered for an emergency meeting at Sarah's apartment. "This isn't just about stopping our investigation," Martinez explained, reviewing security footage from nearby buildings. "They're sending a message. They know exactly who's involved." The break-in was just the beginning. The next day, Captain Wilson announced a departmental audit of all K9 units. Mike and Duke were scheduled first, with Wilson personally overseeing their evaluation. The message was clear: they were under scrutiny. During the audit, Duke performed flawlessly, but Wilson found irregularities in their documentation. "You're suspended pending review," he announced, reaching for Duke's leash. "The dog remains in department custody." Mike's refusal was quiet but firm. "Duke's not department property, sir. Check his adoption papers. They were finalized last month." The look of shock on Wilson's face confirmed they'd outmaneuvered him. Sarah had fast-tracked the adoption through her media connections, securing Duke's legal status before the opposition could react. The retaliation was swift. Anonymous complaints about Mike flooded internal affairs. His past cases were scrutinized. Even his family wasn't spared. His father's pension suddenly came under review. But the team had anticipated this. Jenny Chen had backed up all their digital evidence on secure servers. Tommy's courthouse contacts reported unusual activity around certain judges' chambers. Dr. Roberts' hidden files contained crucial DNA evidence linking the fighting dogs to Wilson's foundation. The situation escalated when Sarah received photographs of herself and Mike meeting with confidential informants. "They're trying to spook our sources," Martinez observed. "But they made a mistake. These surveillance photos give us proof of stalking." Duke's behavior during this period proved remarkable. He never left Mike's side, his protective instincts in overdrive. During one late-night stakeout, his warning prevented Mike from drinking coffee that tests later revealed had been tampered with. The conflict reached its peak during a routine patrol. Mike and Duke responded to a suspicious activity call near the port standard procedure, but the warehouse they were sent to was a trap. As they entered, the doors slammed shut behind them. "Gas!" Mike shouted, recognizing the telltale hiss. But Duke was already leading them to a back exit he'd somehow sensed. They escaped just as armed figures emerged from the shadows. The incident should have been a major news story, an attempt on a police officer's life. Instead, it was logged as a training exercise gone wrong. When Sarah tried to publish the truth, her editor killed the story after receiving pressure from advertisers connected to Wilson's foundation. But the attack galvanized their supporters within the department. Other K9 handlers, seeing the corruption firsthand, began quietly sharing information. Evidence room staff reported unusual file requests. Patrol officers called in suspicious activities around known foundation properties. "They're getting desperate," Mike's father warned during a secure meeting. "That means we're close to something big. But it also means they're more dangerous than ever." The team adapted their strategy. They went public with select pieces of evidence, making it harder for the opposition to act openly. Duke's story, the abused fighting dog turned heroic K9 officer, resonated with the public, creating a protective spotlight. As the dust settled from this first major clash, one thing became clear: there was no going back. The lines were drawn, and the next move would determine not just Mike and Duke's fate, but the future of Tampa's entire law enforcement community. The turning point came during a seemingly routine evidence review. Jenny Chen discovered an irregularity in the K9 unit's financial records, a pattern of payments coded as training equipment that matched deposits to offshore accounts linked to Karen Wilson's foundation. "Look at these dates," Sarah Thompson pointed out, spreading bank statements across her kitchen table. "Every time a dog failed training, exactly 3 days later, $100,000 moved through these accounts." Duke's behavior changed dramatically when they brought him to the Foundation's main office for a supposed routine inspection. His agitation led them to a locked file room where, behind a false wall, they discovered detailed breeding records dating back 15 years. This isn't just about dogfighting, Detective Martinez realized, examining the documents. They've been using the police K9 program as a front for breeding specialized attack dogs, dogs they're selling to private security firms worldwide. Dr. Roberts' analysis of the breeding records revealed a disturbing truth. Duke wasn't just another victim, she explained, her voice tight with anger. He was their prototype, the perfect combination of police training and fighting genetics. When he escaped, he threatened their entire operation. The evidence trail led to Judge Harrison's private estate. During an authorized search for an unrelated case, Mike and Duke discovered a hidden kennel facility. The equipment matched that used in professional police K9 training, but modified for fighting purposes. "The entire system is compromised," Tommy Sullivan reported after reviewing years of court records. "Every time someone got close to exposing this, cases disappeared, witnesses recanted, evidence vanished." Captain Wilson's involvement became clear when Jenny uncovered encrypted emails between him and several international security contractors. The messages detailed specifications for enhanced aggression training and combat-ready K9's euphemisms for fighting dogs. Duke's reaction to specific names and locations in the documents proved crucial. His training as both a police dog and his past as a fighting dog gave him unique insight. He could identify locations where dogs had been trained, leading the team to more evidence. Sarah's investigation revealed a network reaching into Tampa's highest social circles. These charity galas, these foundation fundraisers, they're not just for show, she explained. They're where deals are made, where buyers meet sellers. The breakthrough came when Dr. Roberts discovered medical records matching Duke's distinctive scar pattern. "These aren't random injuries," she concluded. "They're marking their dogs. Each scar is like a signature, showing which training program they came from." Mike and Duke's reputation for success had unknowingly threatened the operation. Every drug bust, every successful arrest demonstrated that their methods based on trust and proper training were superior to the Foundation's brutal techniques. The team worked methodically to document everything. Jenny backed up files hourly, storing them on secure servers. Martinez collected sworn statements from officers who'd witnessed suspicious activities. Tommy's courthouse contacts preserved crucial documents. Duke's presence during the investigation proved invaluable. His reactions to certain evidence, his ability to locate hidden training equipment, and his uncanny sense for identifying other victimized dogs helped build an airtight case. The corruption scope stunned even the most cynical team members. The Foundation had infiltrated police K9 programs across 3 states, using legitimate law enforcement as cover for their illegal breeding operation. "They're not just selling dogs," Martinez concluded during a late-night strategy session. "They're selling a system, training techniques, medical procedures, everything needed to create more fighting dogs. And it all started here in Tampa." As they compiled their evidence, Mike noticed Duke's behavior becoming more protective. The German Shepherd seemed to sense the gravity of their discoveries, maintaining constant vigilance during their investigations. The confrontation erupted during a mandatory K9 unit meeting at police headquarters. Captain Wilson had scheduled an emergency review of all K9 procedures, but Mike and Duke's arrival transformed the routine gathering into a powder keg. Officer Anderson, Wilson announced, his voice carrying across the conference room, "Your recent investigations have raised serious concerns about protocol violations. You're hereby relieved of K9 duties pending review." Mike stood his ground, Duke steady at his side. "With respect, sir, I think we should discuss the real protocol violations like the missing K9s from the training program or the Foundation's connection to illegal breeding operations." The room fell silent. 20 K9 handlers and their partners watched as Wilson's face darkened. "Choose your next words carefully, Anderson. Accusations like that can end careers." Detective Martinez chose that moment to enter, carrying a thick file. "These aren't accusations, Captain. They're documented facts." She began distributing copies of financial records, breeding logs, and surveillance photos. Sarah Thompson appeared at the door with her camera crew, having been tipped off by Jenny Chin. "Care to comment on your foundation's involvement in international dog trafficking?" Mrs. Wilson, she called out as Karen Wilson attempted to leave the room. The carefully orchestrated confrontation forced the Wilsons to reveal their hand. Karen's legitimate charity work had provided perfect cover for years of illegal operations. Now, with evidence being broadcast live, their facade began cracking. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," Karen Wilson snapped, her polished socialite manner slipping. "These dogs are worth millions to the right buyers. What we've built is bigger than this department, bigger than Tampa." Duke's reaction to her voice was telling, a low growl that made other K9s in the room bristle. His response triggered a chain reaction as other police dogs began showing signs of recognition, particularly those who had been through the Foundation's special training program. Dr. Roberts arrived with her own evidence, medical records proving systematic abuse disguised as training. Each of these injuries, she explained to the assembled officers, matches patterns we've found in fighting dogs across 3 states. The confrontation reached its peak when Captain Wilson attempted to seize the evidence files. 2 senior K9 handlers, their own doubts finally confirmed, stepped forward to block him. Years of suspicious transfers and disappeared dogs had left their mark. "Stand down," Wilson ordered, reaching for his phone. But Jenny Chin had already disabled communications in the building. No calls for backup would reach his allies. Tommy Sullivan's courthouse contacts chose that moment to deliver sealed warrants to Martinez. "Full investigation authorized," she announced, by judges outside Wilson's influence. The other handlers began sharing their own stories, mysterious training accidents, dogs that vanished after showing too much promise, threats when they asked questions. The dam of silence had broken. Karen Wilson's composure cracked completely. "You think exposing this changes anything? We have partners in every major city. Private security firms, military contractors, they need what we provide. Your department's budget depends on our foundation." But her threats fell flat as more officers voiced their support for Mike and Duke. The German Shepherd stood vigilant, watching the Wilsons' every move, a living symbol of both their crimes and their failure. "You're suspended immediately," Chief Peterson announced from the doorway, having witnessed enough. "All Foundation activities frozen pending investigation." As the Wilsons were escorted out, Mike knelt beside Duke, whose alert posture never wavered. The dog's journey from fighting victim to key player in exposing the corruption represented everything they'd fought for. But Sarah Thompson's investigative instincts warned her this was just the beginning. "They won't go down without a fight," she murmured to Mike. "The Foundation's network is too big, too profitable to surrender easily." She was right. Within hours, mysterious accidents began befalling key witnesses. Evidence vanished from locked rooms. The real battle was about to begin. The Tampa Police Department fractured in the wake of the Wilson investigation. Battle lines were drawn between officers who supported Mike and Duke's exposure of corruption and those who benefited from the Foundation's influence. The tension permeated every level of the department, from street patrols to administrative offices. "They're targeting K9 handlers who spoke up," Martinez reported during an emergency meeting. 3 officers who had supported Mike's investigation found their lockers vandalized, their case files mysteriously misplaced, their backup requests delayed by dispatchers loyal to Wilson. Chief Peterson faced mounting pressure from city officials concerned about the Foundation's political connections. Half the city council received campaign donations from Wilson's organization, Sarah Thompson discovered. "They're trying to shut down the investigation before we trace those funds." The department's K9 units suffered the deepest division. Veteran handlers who had long suspected something wrong now openly supported Mike, while others, particularly those who had received special training grants from the Foundation, worked to discredit him. Duke's presence in the department became a lightning rod. Some officers would deliberately route their patrols to back up Mike and Duke, while others refused to respond to their calls for assistance. The German Shepherd seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, maintaining unwavering focus during patrols. Dr. Roberts faced professional retaliation. Anonymous complaints were filed with the Veterinary Board questioning her practices. Other vets who had worked with the foundation began disputing her medical findings about Duke and other rescued dogs. "Look at these patrol assignments," Tommy Sullivan pointed out, spreading maps across Martinez's desk. "They're isolating our supporters, moving them to outer districts, breaking up partnerships that have worked together for years." Jenny Chen discovered systematic deletion of digital records. "They're not just erasing evidence," she explained, "they're creating false documentation to discredit our witnesses." Her efforts to protect the department's databases made her a target for both cyber attacks and personal intimidation. The divide affected every aspect of daily operations. Officers had to carefully choose their words in briefings, knowing that any statement could be twisted and used against them. Trust, the foundation of police work, had been shattered. Mike's father, drawing on decades of experience, recognized the pattern. "They're not just protecting themselves," he warned. "They're sending a message to anyone else thinking about exposing corruption. This is about power, not just money." Sarah Thompson's articles documenting the department's split drew national attention. Other police departments across the country began examining their own K9 programs, discovering similar patterns of corruption and cover-ups. Duke's behavior during this period proved remarkable. He seemed to sense which officers could be trusted, subtly alerting Mike to potential threats while maintaining his professional duties. His performance remained exemplary, making it harder for opponents to find fault with their work. The crisis peaked when anonymous sources began feeding false information to local media, attempting to paint Mike and his supporters as rogue officers pursuing personal vendettas. The smear campaign tested loyalties throughout the department. Detective Martinez uncovered evidence that Wilson's allies were building cases against officers who supported the investigation. "They're going through years of records," she warned, "looking for any mistake, any procedural violation they can use." The department's internal communication system became a battlefield. Officers supportive of the investigation developed their own codes and signals, never knowing if their radio calls were being monitored by Wilson's supporters. Through it all, Mike and Duke continued their patrols, their presence a daily reminder of both the corruption they'd exposed and the cost of standing against it. Their success rate remained unmatched, forcing even their critics to acknowledge their effectiveness. The internal police department conflict exploded into public view when Sarah Thompson's comprehensive expose hit the front page of the Tampa Tribune. The story, featuring Duke's journey from fighting ring survivor to police K9 hero, ignited a firestorm of community response. Local animal rights activists organized daily protests outside police headquarters. Justice for K9 signs appeared throughout the city, and a social media campaign, K9's, went viral. The public's emotional connection to Duke's story transformed a departmental investigation into a citywide movement. "This isn't just about police corruption," community leader Maria Rodriguez declared at a packed city council meeting. "It's about how we treat the most vulnerable among us, the animals who serve and protect our community." Dr. Roberts' veterinary clinic became an unexpected hub of public support. Former clients whose dogs had disappeared after being referred to foundation-connected facilities came forward with their stories. Each account added another piece to the puzzle of the Wilson Foundation's operations. Local businesses took sides. Some prominently displayed "We Support Officer Anderson Duke" signs in their windows, while others, particularly those with financial ties to the Wilson Foundation, publicly questioned the investigation's legitimacy. Jenny Chen monitored the digital battlefield as the story spread. "They're trying to control the narrative," she reported, tracking orchestrated social media campaigns attempting to discredit Mike and his supporters. But real people are sharing their own experiences with foundation-connected facilities. They can't suppress every voice. Tampa school children launched a letter-writing campaign to City Hall. "Dear Mayor," one fourth grader wrote, "Duke is a hero who escaped bad people and now helps catch them. Please don't let him hurt him again." The letters, thousands of them, covered the mayor's desk. Detective Martinez discovered that the public attention had an unexpected benefit. "Witnesses who were afraid to come forward are finding strength in numbers," she explained. "They see they're not alone." Local news stations ran nightly updates on the investigation. Duke's appearances at community events drew crowds, with citizens lining up to share information about suspicious activities they'd observed around Foundation properties. Tommy Sullivan's network of informants expanded as ordinary citizens began reporting unusual activities around known Foundation locations. The public's becoming our eyes and ears, he noted. They're watching everything. Sarah Thompson organized a town hall meeting where former K9 handlers from other departments shared similar stories. The pattern of corruption extended beyond Tampa, but Duke's story had finally brought it to light. Mike's father leveraged his old police connections to create a support network for officers facing retaliation. Retired cops provided security for witnesses, while local lawyers offered pro bono services to those targeted by foundation lawsuits. The public pressure forced city officials to take action. An independent commission was established to investigate the K9 program, with citizens and animal welfare experts included alongside law enforcement representatives. Duke's public appearances became powerful symbols of resilience. Children would point him out on patrol, calling him the brave police dog. His dignified bearing and gentle interaction with citizens belied the Foundation's claims about aggressive training being necessary. Local veterinarians, inspired by Dr. Roberts' stance, began reviewing their records for suspicious patterns. A network of professional whistleblowers emerged, providing crucial evidence about the Foundation's medical practices. The community's involvement reached a crescendo when an anonymous donor offered a substantial reward for information leading to convictions. Tips flooded in, overwhelming the investigation team but providing valuable new leads. Mike and Duke's daily patrols became community events, with citizens offering support and information. The German Shepherd's instincts proved invaluable, as he could distinguish between genuine supporters and those attempting to infiltrate their network. The first blow fell on a routine Tuesday morning. Mike arrived at the precinct to find Chief Peterson waiting with two internal affairs officers he didn't recognize. Duke, sensing the tension, pressed closer to Mike's side. Officer Anderson Peterson began, his voice heavy, effective immediately. You're being placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into allegations of evidence tampering. Duke will be temporarily reassigned. Before Mike could react, one of the Iowa officers produced documentation, seemingly irrefutable evidence that Mike had manipulated evidence in several major cases. The papers bore his signature, perfectly forged, on transfer forms he'd never seen. "This is Wilson's work," Mike protested, but he knew the machinery of bureaucracy was already in motion. Duke's leash was taken from his hand, the German Shepherd's confused whimper cutting deeper than any accusation. Dr. Roberts, arriving for Duke's scheduled checkup, witnessed the scene. "You can't separate them," she argued, presenting medical documentation. "Duke's recovery depends on stability. This could trigger severe regression." But the decision had already been made at levels far above the precinct. Duke was led away, looking back at Mike with eyes that held both confusion and determination. It was the same look he'd had years ago in that rain-soaked alley, a survivor's spirit that refused to be broken. Sarah Thompson arrived too late to prevent the separation, but quick enough to document it. "They're not even trying to hide their retaliation anymore," she noted, photographing the scene. "This is going to backfire on them spectacularly." Detective Martinez, watching from her office, immediately began tracing the falsified documents. "They got sloppy," she observed. "Real evidence tampering doesn't leave such obvious trails." The precinct watched in stunned silence as Duke was escorted to a transport vehicle. Officers who had worked with the pair knew they were witnessing more than a procedural matter. This was a deliberate attack on the investigation itself. Mike stood in the parking lot long after Duke had been taken away, his father's words echoing in his mind, "Sometimes they have to break you before you can prove how strong you are." The days following Duke's removal tested Mike's resolve like never before. His apartment, once filled with the sounds of Duke's protective patrols and gentle breathing, now echoed with empty silence. Each morning he still reached for the leash that wasn't there, muscle memory refusing to accept their separation. Sarah Thompson found him reviewing case files at 3 a.m., surrounded by empty coffee cups and photos of previous K9 victims. "You're no good to Duke if you burn yourself out," she warned, but her own eyes showed the strain of endless investigative hours. Dr. Roberts reported that Duke had stopped eating at the department kennel. "He stands at attention whenever someone approaches, thinking it's you," she told Mike during their covert meetings at her clinic. "I've seen this before in separated K9 teams. They don't understand why their partner abandoned them." Detective Martinez faced her own battles within internal affairs. Colleagues who had once shared information now avoided eye contact. Her case files were mysteriously misplaced, investigations reassigned without explanation. The message was clear: support Mike and Duke, face the consequences. Mike's father watched his son struggle with forced inaction. When I lost my partner in '82, he shared, one evening I thought the job was over. But sometimes being sidelined gives you a better view of the whole field. The advice helped, but couldn't fill the void Duke's absence left. Tommy Sullivan risked his position to provide updates on Duke's condition. He's still performing, he whispered during a chance meeting at the courthouse. But there's no joy in it anymore. He's just going through the motions, like he's waiting for something. The strain showed in small ways. Mike would find himself driving past their usual patrol routes, hoping to catch a glimpse of his partner. He kept Duke's favorite toy on his desk, a worn tennis ball that had survived countless training sessions. Jenny Chen monitored the department's internal communications, her heart heavy as she tracked Duke's new assignments. They're working him harder than any other K9, she reported. It's like they're trying to break his spirit. The Foundation's supporters began a whisper campaign, suggesting Mike's emotional attachment to Duke had compromised his judgment. Professional distance, they argued, was essential for K9 handlers. Each insinuation felt like a personal attack on their bond. At night, alone in his apartment, Mike would replay their last moment together. Duke's confused look, the slight whimper, the way he kept glancing back until he was out of sight. "I'll make this right, buddy," he promised the empty room. "Whatever it takes." News of Mike and Duke's separation rippled through Tampa like a shockwave. Local businesses that had grown accustomed to their daily patrols put up protest signs. Bring Back Duke posters appeared in shop windows along their former beat, and children left drawings at the precinct entrance. The Tampa Tribune's coverage of the separation sparked widespread outrage. Sarah Thompson's article, featuring a photo of Duke being led away, generated thousands of responses. Local animal shelters reported a surge in calls from citizens wanting to help other K9s in need. Dr. Roberts' veterinary clinic became a gathering point for supporters. Former clients shared stories of how Mike and Duke had helped them, from finding lost pets to providing security during late-night emergencies. Each tale reinforced the community's sense of loss. "It's not just about a police officer and his dog," Maria Rodriguez explained at a community meeting. "They represented something bigger: justice, loyalty, the triumph of good over evil. Breaking them apart breaks our faith in the system." Local schools, where Mike and Duke had conducted safety demonstrations, sent hundreds of letters to the police department. One third grader's message captured the public sentiment: "Duke helped Officer Mike save us. Now we need to save them." The impact on other K9 handlers became evident as community trust eroded. Citizens who had once welcomed police dogs now watched them with suspicion, wondering if they too were products of the Foundation's controversial training methods. Tommy Sullivan reported a dramatic drop in community tips. "People aren't talking to us anymore," he confided to Detective Martinez. "They say if the department can betray Mike and Duke, how can they trust any of us?" Jenny Chen tracked the social media response, documenting thousands of posts with Justice for Duke and Reunite K9 team. The digital outcry attracted national attention, bringing unwanted scrutiny to the department's handling of the situation. Local veterinarians, inspired by Dr. Roberts' stance, began questioning routine K9 medical procedures. Several refused to work with the department until Mike and Duke were reinstated, creating a crisis in police dog health care. The community's children felt the loss most keenly. Duke had been a regular visitor at the children's hospital, where his gentle presence had helped countless young patients. Now those same children made get-well cards for the separated partners. The darkest period came 6 weeks into their separation. Duke, still refusing regular meals, had lost dangerous amounts of weight. Dr. Roberts, making an emergency visit to the department kennel, found him lying listlessly in his run, the spark gone from his eyes. "His physical condition is deteriorating rapidly," she reported to Mike, her voice cracking. "Without intervention, we could lose him." The words hit Mike like physical blows, each one reinforcing his helplessness. Sarah Thompson uncovered evidence suggesting that Duke's new handler had been instructed to break his bond with Mike. Training sessions turned harsh, with unreasonable demands and punishments for any sign of his old behaviors. The German shepherd endured silently, his spirit visibly dimming. Detective Martinez faced her own crisis when her daughter received threatening notes at school. Back off the investigation or next time it won't be just a note the message read. The implied threat to a child marked a new low in the Foundation's tactics. Mike's father, watching his son spiral into depression, made a desperate attempt to reach old police contacts, but doors that had once opened freely now remained firmly shut. The Foundation's influence reached deeper than anyone had imagined. Jenny Chen discovered attempts to alter Duke's original medical records, erasing evidence of his fighting ring injuries. "They're not just separating you," she told Mike. "They're trying to erase your entire history together." Tommy Sullivan reported that Duke had stopped responding to commands during training. "It's like he shut down completely," he whispered during a clandestine meeting. "The other handlers are worried, but nobody dares speak up." The investigation team's morale hit rock bottom when Dr. Roberts' clinic was vandalized. Photos of recovering fighting dogs were stolen, and her medical files were ransacked. The message was clear: no one was safe. Mike, forbidden from even driving past the K9 facility, spent sleepless nights reviewing their case. Each piece of evidence felt like a mockery now, documenting crimes they seemed powerless to stop. The weight of failure pressed down on him, heavier than any burden he'd carried before. Sarah found him one rainy night at the alley where he'd first discovered Duke. "You're not alone in this," she reminded him, but her voice held a trace of defeat. The Foundation's power seemed insurmountable, their resources endless. Duke's condition became critical when he stopped drinking water. Dr. Roberts, risking her license, smuggled in IV fluids to keep him alive. "He hasn't given up," she insisted, though her medical reports told a different story. "He's waiting for you to find a way back to him." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Late one night, Karen Wilson's personal assistant, Emily Brooks, contacted Sarah Thompson with a USB drive containing years of the Foundation's private records. "I can't sleep anymore," she confessed. "Not after seeing what they did to those dogs." The drive contained damning evidence, detailed breeding programs, medical experiments, and financial transactions linking the Foundation to illegal fighting rings across 3 continents. Most critically, it held video footage of Captain Wilson personally overseeing the selection of police K9's for their program. Detective Martinez worked through the night verifying the files. This isn't just about dogfighting, she realized. They were using the police department as a front for international trafficking. Every failed K9 was actually a successful product for their real clients. Dr. Roberts analyzed the medical protocols documented in the files. These procedures matched Duke's old injuries exactly, she confirmed. They were perfecting their techniques on him before he escaped. He wasn't just a victim, he was their prototype. Jenny Chen traced the financial records through a web of shell companies. "The money leads back to private military contractors," she reported. "They were selling these dogs as weapons, using police training as quality assurance." Tommy Sullivan discovered that Emily Brooks had been keeping her own detailed records. She photographed every meeting, recorded every conversation, he explained. She was building insurance against the day they turned on her. The evidence painted a picture more disturbing than they'd imagined. The Foundation had infiltrated police K9 programs across the country, using legitimate law enforcement training to create valuable fighting dogs. Duke's success as a police K9 had threatened to expose their entire operation. Mike and the team worked methodically to organize the evidence. Each piece had to be verified, each connection documented. One mistake could give the Foundation's lawyers the opening they needed to discredit everything. Sarah Thompson began preparing a comprehensive expose, working with national media outlets to ensure the story couldn't be suppressed. "When this breaks," she told Mike, "it has to be too big for them to bury." Dr. Roberts provided crucial expert testimony, explaining how the Foundation's medical records proved systematic abuse disguised as training. Her professional reputation lent credibility to their most serious allegations. With the evidence secured, the team began building a coalition strong enough to challenge the Wilson Foundation. Detective Martinez reached out to trusted contacts in the FBI's Animal Trafficking Division, presenting their findings through secure channels. "This is bigger than Tampa now," she explained. "We need federal backing." Sarah Thompson activated her network of investigative journalists across the country. Each received a piece of the story, ensuring that if one outlet was silenced, others would continue. The strategy created a safety net of information too widespread to suppress. Dr. Roberts organized a coalition of veterinary professionals, each documenting similar patterns in their own cities. It's not just Tampa, she reported. The Foundation's methods have become standard practice in compromised K9 units nationwide. Mike's father leveraged his connections with retired police officers, forming a protective ring around key witnesses. These veterans, no longer bound by department politics, provided security and credibility to their cause. Jenny Chen established a secure communication network, linking ally groups through encrypted channels. They can't stop what they can't track, she said, teaching their supporters basic cybersecurity protocols. Tommy Sullivan's courthouse contacts proved invaluable, identifying judges beyond the Foundation's influence. Each potential ally was carefully vetted, their connections scrutinized for any link to the Wilsons or their associates. Local animal rights groups, coordinated by Maria Rodriguez, prepared for public demonstrations. Their presence would ensure media attention when the story broke, making it harder for the Foundation to control the narrative. Emily Brooks, now under protection, connected them with other Foundation employees ready to testify. Each new witness added another layer of verification to their evidence, strengthening their legal position. The team established safe houses throughout Tampa, creating a network of secure locations for witnesses and evidence. Dr. Roberts' clinic became their primary command center, its legitimate business providing cover for their meetings. Most crucially, they found allies within the police department itself. Officers who had lost K9 partners to the Foundation's program began coming forward, each with their own pieces of the puzzle. The major breakthrough arrived during the Foundation's annual charity gala. Karen Wilson, confident in her position, had gathered Tampa's elite for a fundraising event showcasing their K9 training program. Duke, still separated from Mike, was scheduled to demonstrate his skills. Sarah Thompson, posing as a society columnist, infiltrated the event. Through her hidden camera, the team watched in real time as Karen Wilson presented their innovative training methods to potential investors. The presentation included footage of training sessions that Dr. Roberts immediately identified as animal abuse. During Duke's demonstration, something extraordinary happened. Despite weeks of harsh reconditioning, the German Shepherd suddenly broke protocol. Instead of performing the assigned routine, he traced a specific pattern across the training ground, one that exactly matched the locations of the Foundation's hidden training facilities. Detective Martinez, monitoring from outside, recognized the significance immediately. He's not just performing, she radioed to the team. He's mapping their operation. Every stop corresponds to a location in our evidence. Jenny Chen, analyzing the footage in real time, overlaid Duke's movement pattern with their documented facility locations. The match was perfect. He's giving us probable cause, she realized. His behavior constitutes a trained response to locations where crimes occurred. Emily Brooks, attending the gala as part of her assistant duties, captured crucial conversations on her hidden recorder. Foundation members, believing themselves among friends, spoke openly about their international operations and political connections. The final piece fell into place when Duke led his handler to a specific panel in the demonstration area's floor. His insistent pawing revealed a hidden compartment containing records of every dog that had passed through their program, including his own original training documents. Dr. Roberts, examining the records through photos sent by Sarah, confirmed they contained detailed breeding histories and training methodologies. This is their playbook, she declared. Everything from selection criteria to their modification techniques. Tommy Sullivan, positioned in the parking lot, photographed license plates of attendees arriving at private entrances. The list included judges who had blocked previous investigations, politicians who had received Foundation donations, and law enforcement officials from multiple jurisdictions. The evidence was irrefutable. Duke had not only maintained his loyalty to the investigation but had created the perfect opportunity to expose the Foundation's entire operation. His demonstration, meant to showcase their control over him, instead revealed their crimes. The takedown was swift and comprehensive. FBI agents positioned throughout the gala venue moved in as Sarah Thompson's live stream provided irrefutable evidence of the Foundation's crimes. Karen Wilson's practiced smile faltered as federal marshals approached her podium. Captain Wilson, attempting to flee through a back entrance, found himself face to face with Detective Martinez and a team of internal affairs investigators. "You might want to read these first," she said, holding up the foundation's complete financial records, especially the parts about your offshore accounts. Duke, still in the demonstration area, broke free from his handler and stood guard over the exposed compartment of documents, preventing any attempts to destroy evidence. His training as both a fighting dog and police K9 had culminated in this moment of perfect justice. Dr. Roberts arrived with a team of veterinary forensics experts, documenting the training equipment and medical supplies on display at the gala. Every piece matches our evidence of systematic abuse, she confirmed. There's no way to deny what happened here. The foundation's carefully constructed facade crumbled in real time. Jenny Chin's cybersecurity team locked down their digital networks, preventing any attempt to delete records. Tommy Sullivan's courthouse contacts expedited emergency warrants, allowing immediate seizure of foundation assets. Mike, watching from the command center established in Dr. Roberts' clinic, finally allowed himself to breathe. Years of investigation, months of separation from Duke, countless personal sacrifices, all leading to this moment of vindication. Sarah Thompson's live coverage ensured transparency as federal agents led foundation members away in handcuffs. Karen Wilson's protests about her charitable work were drowned out by Emily Brooks' recorded evidence of her involvement in international dog trafficking. The most powerful moment came when Duke, his duty to guard the evidence complete, sat calmly amid the chaos, watching the arrests with quiet dignity. The fighting dog they had tried to create, the police K9 they had tried to control, had become something far more powerful, a symbol of unbreakable loyalty and justice. The reunion between Mike and Duke took place in the early morning light outside Dr. Roberts' clinic. After 8 weeks of forced separation, Duke's ears perked up at the sound of familiar footsteps. He turned, his entire body trembling with recognition. Mike knelt down, his voice cracking as he called out softly, "Hey, buddy." Duke moved forward slowly at first, as if afraid this moment might not be real. Then, in a burst of emotion, he bounded forward, nearly knocking Mike over with the force of his greeting. Dr. Roberts, watching through tears, documented the moment for medical records. Duke's vital signs, which had been deteriorating during their separation, immediately began to improve. His tail, motionless for weeks, now wagged with unrestrained joy. Sarah Thompson captured the scene on camera, Duke pressing his head against Mike's chest, Mike burying his face in Duke's fur, both of them trembling with emotion. The photograph would later win a Pulitzer Prize, becoming a symbol of loyalty triumphing over corruption. The gathered crowd, clinic staff, fellow officers, community supporters witnessed something more than a man reuniting with his dog. They saw the restoration of a partnership that had exposed systemic corruption and changed law enforcement forever. As the sun rose over Tampa, Mike and Duke sat together on the clinic steps, neither willing to break physical contact. Their bond, tested by separation and strengthened by adversity, had become something legendary, a testament to the unbreakable connection between a handler and his K9 partner. Tampa's citizens turned the reunion into a spontaneous celebration. The streets around Dr. Roberts' clinic filled with well-wishers, from children holding handmade welcome back Duke signs to elderly residents who had followed their story from the beginning. Local businesses joined the festivities. Mario's Italian restaurant, where Mike had first found Duke years ago, provided free meals to everyone gathered. The owner, tears in his eyes, presented Duke with a specially prepared steak on a silver platter. Students from Tampa Elementary School, where Mike and Duke had conducted safety demonstrations, performed a surprise chorus of "Who Let the Dogs Out," causing Duke's ears to perk up and his tail to wag in rhythm. Their teacher explained how the children had prayed for this reunion every morning. The Tampa Police Department's K9 handlers, those who had stood by Mike throughout the investigation, arrived with their partners. The dogs, sensing the significance of the moment, formed an impromptu honor guard around Mike and Duke. Maria Rodriguez, speaking for the Community Action Committee, presented them with a plaque commemorating their service. "You didn't just expose corruption," she declared to the crowd. "You showed us what real partnership means." The celebration reached its peak when Duke, apparently deciding the moment needed more joy, grabbed his favorite tennis ball and initiated an impromptu game of fetch with the neighborhood children. The sight of the heroic K9 playing like a puppy brought both laughter and tears to the gathered crowd. Later that evening, after the crowds dispersed, Mike's closest supporters gathered in Dr. Roberts' clinic for a private celebration. Duke moved from person to person, expressing his gratitude in his own way, a gentle head bump for Sarah Thompson, a playful paw for Jenny Chin, a solemn sit beside Detective Martinez. Dr. Roberts conducted one final checkup, happy tears falling as she documented Duke's miraculous recovery. His vital signs are better than ever, she announced. It's like the past 8 weeks never happened. Duke responded by giving her hand a grateful lick. Mike's father, watching his son and Duke together, shared stories of his own K9 partner from decades ago. Some bonds, he observed, are stronger than any force trying to break them. Duke, hearing the emotion in the old officer's voice, rested his head on the veteran's knee. Sarah Thompson, reviewing her notes for the final article, found herself drawn into the intimate moment. The story she'd set out to cover had become deeply personal, changing not just Tampa's law enforcement but everyone involved in its telling. Tommy Sullivan brought out Duke's old training toys, saved from the day of their separation. Duke's excitement at seeing them made everyone laugh through tears. He was still the same playful spirit, unscarred by the ordeal. In this quiet moment, surrounded by those who had fought alongside them, Mike and Duke's partnership seemed more than just a working relationship. It had become a symbol of unwavering loyalty, proof that some connections can withstand any challenge. The impact of Mike and Duke's story reverberated far beyond Tampa. Within months, their case sparked nationwide reform in K9 training programs. The Anderson-Duke Act, passed by Florida's legislature, established strict oversight of police dog training facilities and mandated transparency in K9 unit operations. Dr. Roberts' clinic became a national center for K9 rehabilitation, specializing in rescued fighting dogs. Her protocols, developed during Duke's recovery, became the standard for treating trauma in service animals. Duke himself became a regular visitor, his calm presence helping other dogs heal. Sarah Thompson's series of articles won multiple journalism awards, but more importantly, led to investigations of K9 programs in other states. Her documentation of Mike and Duke's journey became required reading in police academies nationwide. The Tampa Police Department underwent a complete transformation. Under new leadership, the K9 unit became a model of ethical training and handler-dog partnerships. Mike and Duke were appointed as lead trainers, their story serving as a foundation for teaching new handlers about the true meaning of partnership. Duke's legacy lived on in unexpected ways. Children who had followed his story grew up to become veterinarians, police officers, and animal rights advocates. The tennis ball he carried during their reunion became part of a permanent exhibition at the Tampa Police Museum, symbolizing the unbreakable bond between handler and K9. Most significantly, their story changed public perception of police dogs. No longer seen as just tools of law enforcement, K9s were recognized as partners deserving of protection, respect, and the right to retire with dignity alongside their handlers. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.